Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Scouting for Growth podcast. I'm thrilled to welcome legendary entrepreneur John Hewitt. John is a true pioneer in the tax preparation and financial services industry, having founded and scaled two companies to over $500 million in value. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service and Liberty Tax Service. With over 8,000 franchisees across his companies, John has an incredible wealth of knowledge when it comes to building and growing brands. He's been able to achieve rapid expansion across thousands of locations while still maintaining consistencies and quality. And we will dive into those as we go into the podcast. John is now applying his strategic prowess to the pet care industry, which is really an interesting industry because in Europe it's growing as well at scale. As the CEO of Loyalty Brands, he is focusing on emerging brands in mobile pet grooming and other pet services, an area which has already seen, increasingly interest and growth, even in my industry, which is insurance. So John does recognize massive potential in this high growth market and has amazing ambition for it. And he will actually share what he's been doing to actually scale his new business within the pet sector. Throughout his illustrious career, though, which spanned 55 years, John has always kept sight of one single driving purpose, which is about changing lives. It takes pride in having a monumental positive impact on franchises, which is really the main conversation we are going to have here, but also around his employees. Some of his employees have been with him for 55 years and his customers, and he actually also spend a lot of time talking to them. So I'm looking forward to tapping into John's extraordinary experience. We will explore his strategies for scaling successful empires, overcoming barriers, financing growth models, and more. So let's jump right into our insightful discussion. So welcome, John, to the Scouting for Growth podcast. Hi, John. Thank you so much for joining me on Scouting for Growth.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So, John, let's get started with a little bit of background. Who are you? And what do you do? And what got you to build and scale two companies to over, I think, $500 million in value?
I actually started when I was at University of Buffalo 55 years ago. I took an H&R Block course and I loved it. And I was blessed to find out what I wanted to do the rest of my life when I was 20 years old. So when I left school and joined H&R Block full time, 12 years later, I was running 250 H&R Block offices. And my dad was CFO of a public company, and he decided that he liked the little Apple computer better than the mainframe that was running his public company. So in 1981, we both quit our jobs and built the first tax software for an Apple computer. No one wanted it, way ahead of its time. Got blessed and found a company in Virginia Beach called Mel Jackson Tax Service. We merged the computer company with Mel Jackson, changed the name to Jackson Hewitt, went public, and built my first $500 million company. So sold it in 97, and I had a 3-year non-compete. The non-compete didn't cover Canada because Jackson Hewitt had never gone to Canada. And having grown up in Buffalo, I knew Canadian taxes. So we opened Liberty Tax in Canada, and within 3 years became one of the top 100 retail chains in Canada. When my non-compete ended, came back to the United States, now I had to compete against my own name, my own software, my own people, my own system at Jackson Hewitt. And yet we grew faster than them and H&R Block combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years. Again, a public company, again, worth $500 million. And again, I sold my stock. And now we have Loyalty Brands. And unlike Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, where we just had one franchisor, At Loyalty Brands, we have 8 different franchisors. And we divide them into 3 markets. One is tax and accounting. Secondly is construction, led by our roofing division. And the fastest growing is in pets, and it's mobile pet grooming. We have mobile pet grooming and storefront pet grooming, but the mobile pet grooming is growing by leaps and bounds. It's called Zoom and Grooming. So that's my 55 years in a nutshell.
55 years, commendable. So first, let's divide that into 2. First, I would love for you to actually share with us, what do you think are the key ingredients and strategies that any growth companies need to consider to actually yield the success you have actually been able to achieve between, I think, the US, Canada, coming back to United States?
Actually, that's a very long topic. I do a weekly webinar and mentoring session. And on one of them recently, I spent over an hour on how to grow companies exponentially, that grow them just at super growth rates. So that's a long topic on what the secret is. But certainly the key, one of the key ingredients is you have to get buy-in from everyone that's involved, and you have to have a dream that's fairly accurate, and then you have to get your employees, your customers, your vendors, your investors, your just everyone involved has to buy in to where you're going, and sort of, if you will, drink the Kool-Aid. So it's that's a key element, and then you have to manage your growth properly, because there's 2 major parts of growth. One is the amount of money you spend, and one is the amount of money you take in. And you always have to make sure that they're balanced. You don't spend too much money before you have income, or you go bankrupt, and you don't have too much income before you have the expenditures, the support, or you'll collapse from lack of service. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of the key couple things that really have set us apart in our fantastic growth we've had. Now we're in the third company that's going to be a top 100 retail chain in the United States.
Congratulations. And I like the divide, right? It's actually about aligning around operation, business model operation, but also balancing the books. So now looking at the franchising business, you mentioned tax and accounting, construction, and pet. And I heard that you may have 8,000 franchisees now. I remember when we met a few months ago, I think my number was 5,000. So can you tell us a little bit more as to how you are scaling this type of business? What is the business model of franchisee? And how do you achieve consistency? I remember, buying, skincare product from a green brand once upon a time, and the service, or I would say the product was consistent, but the interaction in the shop was very different from one franchisee to the other. So how do you maintain consistency?
Yeah, the key to that is, and that's so important. When you're a franchisee, one of the things you want from your franchisor is that consistency, that quality. And whoever offers the worst service in your system will determine what your brand name is. Your brand name isn't based on who does the best job. Your brand name is based on who does the worst job. So we do something that no one else does in the franchise world. And that is, we call every customer and ask them how we did. In other brands, they send them an email or a text, or mail them something, a survey, or hand them a survey. Our surveys are done by telephone. We ask people how we did for them. And it's been great for us, because not only do we police our brand, but our customers love to be called. No other industries or no other competitors are calling them, and they love to be asked how we can improve our service to them. And in addition to that, what I've found in all my brands is the people that are touching the customer, the people that are face to face with the customers, the dog groomers, the tax preparers, the accountants, they're not good at asking for referrals. And so the person that makes the call, very personable person, special person, they ask for a referral. So by calling customers, we get three things. We get to police the system, we get a higher retention rate, and we get more referrals.
That's incredible. And so, when you actually look at this environment, why did you decide to go for tax and accounting? I want to go into a bit more the trend and the patterns and how you made choices around those industries. So what were the triggers when you decided to focus on tax, construction, I can guess, and pet? What were your drivers? Because in Europe, pet is, an elderly population means a lot of pets. And even during, the COVID-19 period, a lot of people got pets. And so I can understand some of the trends, but really helping our listeners to understand how choices are being made around market trends.
Yeah, they're pretty simple. I've been in taxes for 55 years, so that's my long love I love Benjamin Franklin said 250 years ago, there's only two certainties in life, death and tax. And so the tax business is recession proof virtually. We in 2008 and 2009, the worst recession of our lifetime, we grew by over 600 locations. And we were the fastest growing company in the United States during 2008 and 2009, because you don't have to buy a fancy cup of coffee or a car or a refrigerator, but you have to buy your taxes. And so that I love the tax industry for many reasons. Construction, I've never met a person in construction that owned a construction company that didn't do well. I mean, it's just a great industry. And with the growing population, it continues to grow and boom. And there's always repairs, and not only new construction, but there's lots of repairs. For example, with our roofing division, there's problem. Well, a roof has to be replaced every 15 years. Plus, there are hailstorms and windstorms and tornadoes and hurricanes and all kinds of storms are getting worse over the last 30 years. So more and more need for construction. And pets, wow, you're just right. Not only is what you're saying right with the aging population, but so as an aging population, there are more pets. But also, what we've seen here in the United States is that that 20, 30, and 40-year-olds are having pets instead of children. Mm. They're delaying having children. They frankly say, sometimes I ask if they have children, they say, I have two dogs. Those are my children. And I mean, it's a real, over the last 10 years, a real change in our society.
Yeah, and I've had friends who actually said exactly the same about their pets. So I'd like to ask you about driving innovation and really understanding how the franchise business leverage technology. So my question to you, John, is what roles does technology and innovation play within the growing future-proofing of franchise businesses and franchise brand? And how do you recommend them to make the most of the technology to actually support the growth of their business?
Yeah, we try to figure out what we do, what things we do are systemic, that are done over and over again. And anything that's systemic should be able to be provided by software and computers. So we divide issues up into, I call it tip of the iceberg. That if it's something that is systemic, if it's an iceberg, then we're looking for a solution to it. And if it's not, if it's just a one-off situation, then we don't build systems for it and we don't use software for it. So that's I've been doing that for decades, ever since 1981, when we built the first tax software for an Apple. We try to make things expeditious and consistent of high quality.
So, and then when you start looking at how you expanded your business, and I actually partly like the trend around pet, because this is a major trend we are see in Europe across markets. And we've seen over the years also financial services institution, dedicated to the pet industry, building and combining product and services in different ways to actually allow for the financial services product to make sense to the customer. How do you actually start building a loyalty brand? You mentioned the word loyalty brand. And what is the trend around building those loyalty brand to attract and grow market?
Yeah, the idea of the name loyalty came to me from some of my top franchisees at Liberty Tax when I left Liberty Tax. And I left Liberty Tax, there was an internal battle for control over, I call them the suits, the private equity that just wants to focus on profits, and the founder staff that wants to focus on people. And so there was an internal conflict. And some of the franchisees who were involved in the conflict, a couple of them came to me at breakfast one morning and said, you should start a company called Loyalty, because there are so many people loyal to you, and just bring over the people that are loyal to you. And they came up with the word loyalty, and I added the word brands, because brand loyalty is such a cool thing, or just an important thing to have, is brand loyalty. And so I said, well, we can't call it brand loyalty, but we certainly can call it loyalty brands. So that's how we came up with the name. And actually, I have 3 people that have been with me 35 years. I have 5 that have been with me 25, 7 with 20 or more. So I just have an incredible staff of qualified people that have been with me for a long, long time. And that's gratifying and humbling. And the only way to really get loyalty is to give loyalty. You can't just hire someone and all of a sudden they're loyal to you. That doesn't happen. You have to build that, and that starts and ends with being loyal to them
and building that trust. And I love what you are saying, because leadership until building is actually critical nowadays. We are suffering, John, with a talent gap in my industry, where it's very, very difficult to actually find the talent and recruit it, and actually having it wanting to stay within the industry. Insurance, finance is sometimes sexy, but not the sexiest right now. And so I would love to hear your tips, really, around how you build your empire and actually got people staying with you 50, 20 years. What are the things we need to think about as we recruit top talent, as we try to retain top talent? How do we do that, whether we are a big business or a small one?
Yeah, I think Richard Branson said it well, the great billionaire entrepreneur said it really well. He said, train your staff so they can go anywhere and be successful, but treat them so well that they want to stay. So it comes from creating a culture. Long ago, I wondered, until I was about 40, I wondered what was the difference between the executives at a great company like Walmart and a failing company like Kmart. I mean, they're in the same industry, they sell the same products, but one is huge success and the other is a huge failure. So the executives have to be different in some way. And I asked myself, are they smarter? Are they more experienced? Are they more educated? And I said, no, you can hire the smartest, most educated, most experienced. So I realized and learned that it's about the culture that you set in the organization and the attitude. And the attitude starts with employees first. And if you want your customers to be treated well, you have to treat your employees well. And you have to listen, and you have to be loyal to your team. And so you have to build a team of people with great attitudes. Tom Watson Sr., the founder of IBM, said, give me 100 people with great attitude or give me 100 great engineers. I'll take the people with great attitude, because you can teach engineering, you can't teach attitude. So it's important, in order to retain employees, you have to have a great culture, but you have to hire others that fit in the culture, that have great attitudes.
100%. As you are mentioning the quote from IBM, I did work at IBM during Lou Gostner and then Ginny Rometty. And so I am very grateful for this organization, because a lot of the skills I build around strategy and, really treating customer well and process. I was very much in value creation and process design, come from my 8 years at IBM. But what you're also saying is that, employers, as much as employee, need to be into a relationship. And so those relationships are critical to actually yield success. Today, a lot of the skills I use in my business are coming from my time during IBM, but also during the acquisition of PwC Consulting. So let's talk about, how do we overcome barriers and also achieve goals, John? You, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who has built very successful businesses, what are the barriers? I would like you to come back to go when you were very, very young, right? 55 years ago and coming into now. What are the barriers you had to overcome as an entrepreneur? And how were you able to actually learn from them to actually achieve the success you have achieved today?
There are constant barriers and constant obstacles. God doesn't put anyone on the planet to skate through. We all have to face adversity. And the winners always get up. Always, you get knocked down virtually daily by obstacles and barriers and problems. And so you are going to face constant aggravation and barriers and obstacles, but our job is to figure a way to solve those situations. And again, if you're going to win, you have to get up each and every time as you get knocked down. But you have to, as you said, you have to learn from them. One of great coaches in football said, we go onto the field every time with a plan to win, with a game plan to win, knowing that we're not going to always win, but we're either going to win or we're going to learn some valuable lessons so that we have a better chance of winning next time. So yes, you always have to be in a learning mode. Our goal is to have the best system in each of our industries. And in order to do that, we know that it has to be improving, that no best system today is going to be the best system 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years from now. It has to be an improving system. And a wise man once said, if you're not improving, your competitor is gaining on you. So the key to success and building and overcoming obstacles is improvement.
Always improvement, continuous improvement. And today, I often say to the ventures I work with, continuous learning, because I think we are moving so fast right now that we cannot afford to actually stay still. So we have to be curious, we have to learn from others, and also be curious to read, right? To actually educate ourselves continuously. So, what would be maybe your top three advice to the entrepreneurs? I would like for them to get really crisp three advice from you for those aspiring young ventures, really the startup, and then maybe inspiring as well the scale ups, the organization, which are just at this level where, they can move to the next level of growth. They are stuck. They are stuck in I think some people call it the white water space. What would be your advice?
Well, I think you asked me two things. To start, I would say find something you love to do, work hard, and persevere. And those that are stuck, and you have when you get stuck, I've seen most of the time people get stuck because they get complacent and they get the amount of income they want, or the house they want, or the car they want, or the education for the children they want, and they lose their passion, their drive. So you have to, in order to be all you can be, you need to reset your goals. You need to think about where you want to be. And too many people get to a place of that. You're right; they're stagnant. They're in still water, and they're not willing to swim upstream anymore. They say they're taking the easy way, and we'll go downstream instead of we'll fighting the currents. And so what I've always done, is start from day one with big, hairy, audacious goals. When I bought 6 offices from Mel Jackson's widow in 1982, H&R Block had 9,000 locations. And I said, our goal is to have 9,001 locations. So we're going to add 8,995 locations. And I said that in 1982. Well, we only got to 6,000, but there was at no point did we say, if I had said, well, we're going to get to 50 locations or 100 or 200, then that would have led to complacency. So part of your drive has to be, if you have to want it, and you have to set big, hairy, long-term, audacious goals. You can't set a goal just for 1 year or 1 month. You start with a big, hairy, audacious goal and say, okay, if in 15 years we're going to have 9,000, then in 8 years we're going to have 5,000 or 4,000, and then in 4 years we're going to have 1,000, and then in 2 years we're going to have 200. I mean, you have to take a great goal, big, hairy, audacious goal, and then back it down to slowly down to, okay, what do I need to do for the next quarter, the next 6 months, and the next 12 months? But start thinking big.
Let's think big, right? And then you are saying break it down, right? So you are looking big, future, and then you are working backwards and actually saying the yearly, quarterly goals, and probably the daily actions. And so, how often do you revisit this, John? Do you do that every 2 years, every 3 years? What would be to avoid the complacency? How often do you review this?
Every year we meet the executive team and decide where the next 5 years are going to be, and then break it down into 3 years, and then break it down into 1 year. So we have a team meeting for a couple of days, and it goes 5, 3, and 1, and then everyone knows. So, for example, if in 2025 we're going to add 200 new franchisees, well, we know how much we're going to spend in advertising, how many salespeople we have to have, how many people we have to train. It's how many people we have to find a location for. So we all have our goals. In each part of the company has their goals based on the big goal, but always in the background is that long-term goal. that by a certain date, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to have some number of thousands of offices.
That's superb. So I think when we met a few months ago, you mentioned the goal of changing lives. And so I would really love for us to talk about what that means for you within the business of franchisee, but I think beyond franchisees business, how do you impact employees, people, I guess employees, families as well, and your customers?
Yeah, that's, let me start with our mission statement is having fun and improving lives. And I believe that on Monday morning, if you're not looking forward to where you're going to the wrong place. Life is too short. So having fun is incredibly important. And I've had an incredible, blessed career that I've always enjoyed what I was doing. But improving lives is a vast statement. It means improve the customer, the franchisee, the employee, and ourselves, and also the world around us, to give back. So it's a incredibly all-encompassing statement, and that's what we're all about. Is I saw the famous actor Denzel Washington did a commencement speech, and he said, and I almost fell off my seat. He said the last thing he said was, the most selfish people on the planet are people that help others. And I said, what? And he said, because they're so happy. And what he meant, and he finished with, is helping other people is the most rewarding, gratifying thing on the planet. You're changing our world and making it a better place. And I've made over 1,000 millionaires, and over 5,000 people become half a millionaires, and I've changed so many lives and just given them jobs and given them training and motivation and support and family. People that work for my company, they think of it as family. I think of it as family/team. They don't say it's, I think of working with John as a team. They think of it as a family, but I think of it as family and team. It's both combined, right? Because it's not just family. It's family and team. But yeah, it's putting others first. When I have an employee or a customer or a franchisee, I always want what's best for them, and it's wonderful if it's best for me too. And it often is. But if it's not, then God bless them. If someone wants to run off and explore the world for 2 years and leave their job, then God bless them. I'm here to help improve their life, and it isn't always with me.
Yes, it's not always with us. And I think what you're also saying about the fact that we grow through others is commendable. And often we learn that when we are older rather than younger, actually, John. I think it's like a little seed and you realize that it's the way of life. And as I'm listening to you as well around the word family versus employee or team, it's one of those words which has been always really complicated, I would say, in Europe. When, in United States, the word family is often used for colleagues and you're actually creating those bonds because you're spending so much time with those people. But I think in Europe, sometimes when we use the word family, people said, really? I already have one. So we always try to be careful to use the word family in the context of work. That's why when you actually said, family/team, it's like you're part of the people I really care for and think about every day. I think it's very fair to say.
Yeah, family with me is not as clear in the sense that I have family members that I don't like. Right? I mean, I love my entire family, but there are people closer to me at work than people that are in my blood family. So I'm not sure how that is in Europe, but our families are not always people that are I'm proud of. So
Yeah, I can
especially if you have
understand.
a large family, you have outcasts, you have
Yes.
black sheep, and
100%.
right.
And it's really about evaluating and getting people to really understand what the word means. Is people who are so close to that we actually spend so much time with. And, some of my colleagues, they come and stay in my house, right? So it's like family, who do you open your door to is people who are very close to you. One thing I would love to talk about is financial growth because here's the thing, over the past 2 years, financial fundraising has been really hard. And I was looking at the financial numbers for my industry, which is fintech. The industry has 152,000 startups. Probably right now, 30% have been able to raise money, and that number is 850 billion. So it's not small. However, if you look at 2024 right now, is half of last year, which is half of the year before. So fundraising is really, really tough right now for startups. And that also encouraged me to think I will probably end up in the next 1 to 2 months to build a course around how to raise your first million, learning from people like you. And so I will take snippets around what you are saying, around the best practices around financial growth. So based on your experience, John, how does fundraising work when we think about friends and family, when we look at angel investors and other stages of, you have gone public, right? Can you give us some advice for those young startups, struggling to get money from VCs?
Yeah, I think that, well, in all my examples, in all my my three startups at Jackson Hewitt and Liberty and now Loyalty, I went to friends and family and got them to invest. And it was small in 1982 when I was 33 years old. We raised 129,000. Well, then I built a $500 million company, so it was a lot easier. So we raised several million the second time, and the same sold another company for 500 million, and that was had been worth 500 million, and then so we raise millions. But it starts with, in each case, it starts with kind of bootstrapping the company. And you have to realize, I think too many companies start out with too much overhead. You can't make $250,000 a year or $500,000 a year as a CEO in a startup. That's just insane. I mean, you're just blowing money out and if you're making that money, then others expect to make that money. So let's say that I start up a company today and I want to make $500,000 a year because I've been worth it. I built $1 billion company or $500,000 company, or I just think so much of myself. I leave another job where I was making two, three, four, $500,000. Well, if I'm making that kind of money, then my chief marketing officer is going to want a lot of money. My chief financial officer is going to want my each of my leaders is going to be making a lot of money. So all of a sudden, I'm starting a company with an overhead of $2 million of salary. I mean, that's a big hill to overcome, a big wall to climb. If I start out, when I started Liberty, we took zero salary for the first year
Mm.
after we left Jackson Hewitt. So all I made all the executives, but they got stock in a company that the stock made them all millionaires, right? But I said you have to take stock for the whole first year, and then we needed to raise less money, and we were more effective, more efficient, and it gave them more drive, and they were all in more effectively because they wanted to build revenue so they could get paid.
Yeah. And so you're already touching upon operation, right? How you build an efficient operational environment with the right people who are paid the right level of salary to actually scale and grow a business. And that's where equity is really important to actually scale this business. What's your view around marketing? How important is marketing? I know we need to sell, we need to close the deals, but how important is marketing as part of this?
Well, marketing is every dollar you spend. Most people think that marketing is just advertising. But marketing is who you hire, how you train, what the color of the carpet is, whether the office is clean and the bathroom is clean, what benefits you pay your employee. Everything is marketing. So marketing is life or death. Life or death. I mean, without customers, there is no need for a CEO. There's no need for an investor or an employee or anything. I mean, the customers pay all of the bills. So marketing is life and death.
And so when you look at the future, what is the future for John? What's next, John? What new industry are you going to conquer?
Right now, we're focused on the three initiatives of tax and accounting, construction, and pets. And the most exciting one right now is in growing the fastest is the pet industry. Over the last 4 or 5 years, it's more than doubled, and all predictions are, and from our observations and studies, are it's going to double again over the next 4 or 5 years. So right now we're focusing on everything pet, and we just acquired. We have the fastest growing mobile grooming service in the United States, and we just acquired a storefront grooming service, and we're looking at everything from pet walking or dog walking, pet sitting, picking up poop, changing cat litter, food delivery, cremation. I mean, you name it. If it's involving pets, we're looking at supplying everything. We want 100% share of that pet expense.
One-stop shop for the pet. I can hear a lot of services. You are enabling the pet owner and the pet lovers to actually be able to acquire, I guess, at the touch of a button, which is commendable because, as you said, it's an interesting market. It's a growing market. I just come back from Italy, and in my local store, once upon a time, there was an aisle with barbecue stuff. And as I went this time around, I have a guess, the aisle has been replaced with pet food. And
Wow.
so completely gone, the barbecue stuff. All the things I could find on this aisle were one section for dogs, so anything you needed for dogs, and then the other section, anything you needed for cats.
Nice.
So thank you very much, John, for joining me today on Scouting for Growth. But where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, loyaltybrands.com. And my book is free. If anyone wants to go on, there's a link they can order my book on how I built my two successful $1 billion practices.
And we will add this in the notes for the podcast. So thank you so much, John, for joining me today on Scouting for Growth.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scouting for Growth. Please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a 5-star rating. Your rating is so valuable. I review all of them, and my team help me adapt content to meet your needs. Also, connect with me on my preferred channels. I am a B2B growth expert, so you will find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Threads, and X as well as Blue Sky. All information available below. Until next, keep scouting for growth.